As days turned into weeks, Emily tried to return to normal life, but the memory of that shadowy figure haunted her every waking moment. She felt constantly on edge, jumping at every creak and groan her house made. Her parents, though initially concerned, began to chalk up her anxiety to teenage nerves and an overactive imagination. "Emily, you need to move past this," her mother said gently one evening. "It was probably just a prank." "Yeah," her father agreed. "We live in a safe neighborhood. There's nothing to worry about." But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. She found herself checking the locks multiple times each night and closing the curtains as soon as the sun set. Her grades began to slip, and she avoided hanging out with friends, preferring the perceived safety of her home. One night, Emily's parents went out for dinner, leaving her alone again. They assured her they wouldn't be late, but as the hours ticked by, Emily found herself once more alone with her fears. She tried to focus on her homework, but her mind kept drifting back to the shadow at the window. Around 9 p.m., just as she was beginning to relax, the power went out. The sudden darkness swallowed the room, and Emily's heart leapt into her throat. She grabbed her phone, using the flashlight to navigate the house. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of her breathing. She made her way to the living room, intending to check the fuse box in the basement. As she reached the top of the basement stairs, her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced down, expecting it to be from her parents. But it wasn't. The message was from an unknown number. "Are you alone?" Emily's blood ran cold. Her hands trembled as she typed a response. "Who is this?" Almost immediately, another message came through. "Look outside." Her instincts screamed at her to run, hide, and do anything but look outside. But morbid curiosity got the better of her. She crept towards the living room window, her phone's light casting eerie shadows on the walls. Slowly, she pulled back the curtain just enough to peek outside. At first, she saw nothing but the dark outline of her backyard. But then she noticed it. The same shadowy figure standing by the tree at the edge of the yard. It was motionless, staring directly at her window. Panic surged through her. She dropped the curtain and backed away, her mind racing. She needed to call the police, but before she could dial, another text message buzzed through. "I'm coming closer." Emily's heart pounded. She ran to the kitchen, locking the back door and grabbing the largest knife. She retreated to her room, locking the door behind her and dialing 911 with shaking fingers. "911, what's your emergency?" The operator's calm voice was a small comfort. "There's someone outside my house," Emily whispered, trying to keep her voice steady. "They've been watching me." "Stay calm, ma'am. Are you in a safe place?" "Yes, I'm in my room. The doors are locked." "Officers are on their way. Stay on the line with me." Emily could hear her ragged breathing as she waited, every second feeling like an eternity. She could hear the wind howling outside, branches scraping against the house. Then there was another noise, a soft, deliberate tap-tap-tap on her bedroom window. She turned slowly, her heart thundering in her chest. The shadowy figure was now standing right outside her window, its face obscured by the darkness. The tapping continued, relentless and terrifying. "Please hurry," Emily begged into the phone. "The officers are close," the operator assured her. "Stay where you are." Suddenly the tapping stopped, and the figure vanished from the window. Emily strained to hear anything over the pounding of her own heart. Minutes later, she saw flashing lights through the window as police cars pulled up to her house. "Officers are here," Emily said, relief flooding her voice. "Good, go let them in, but be careful." Emily crept downstairs, knife still in hand, and unlocked the front door. Two officers entered, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. "Are you Emily?" one of them asked. "Yes," she replied, her voice shaking. "Stay inside. We'll check the perimeter." Emily watched as the officers searched the yard and surrounding area. After what felt like an eternity, they returned. "We didn't find anyone," one of the officers said. "But we did see some footprints near the tree in your backyard. We'll have a patrol car keep an eye on the house tonight." "Thank you," Emily said, feeling a mix of relief and frustration. The officers left, and Emily locked the door behind them. She knew she wouldn't be able to sleep that night. She sat in the living room, every light in the house turned on, clutching the knife and waiting for her parents to come home. When they finally did, they found her wide awake, eyes red from exhaustion and fear. "Emily, what happened?" her mother asked, rushing to her side. "I saw him again," Emily whispered. "The shadow. He was right outside the window." Her parents exchanged worried glances. They didn't dismiss her this time. Instead, they called the police again and filed a full report. They even considered moving, but selling the house and relocating wasn't something they could do overnight. In the following days, Emily's parents installed security cameras around the house. They also replaced the locks and added motion sensor lights. Emily tried to convince herself that these measures would keep her safe, but the sense of unease never fully left her. One afternoon, as she reviewed the security footage out of habit, something caught her eye. The camera facing the backyard showed the shadowy figure standing by the tree, just as it had before. But this time, the figure did something different. It turned its head slowly, as if aware it was being watched, and pointed directly at the camera before vanishing into thin air. Emily's blood ran cold. She called her parents and the police immediately. The officers who arrived reviewed the footage and confirmed what Emily had seen. "This isn't a prank," one of them said, his face serious. "This person knows what they're doing. We'll increase the patrols in the area." Despite the increased security, Emily felt like a prisoner in her own home. She stopped going out after dark and always made sure someone was with her whenever she had to leave the house. Her friends grew concerned, but Emily couldn't bring herself to tell them the whole story. She didn't want to be labeled as the girl who cried wolf. Months passed with no further incidents, and Emily slowly began to relax. The shadowy figure seemed to have vanished, and she started to regain a sense of normalcy. She even managed to go out with friends a few times, enjoying moments of laughter and freedom. But one night, as she was getting ready for bed, she received another text message from the same unknown number. "Did you miss me?" Panic surged through her once more. She called the police, but when they arrived, they found no signs of the intruder. The text was untraceable, and the security footage showed nothing unusual. Emily's parents decided enough was enough. They arranged for her to stay with her aunt in another city while they figured out what to do next. Emily was relieved to leave the house that had become her nightmare. At her aunt's place, Emily felt safe for the first time in months. Her aunt was a kind woman who went out of her way to make Emily feel at home. They spent evenings chatting and watching movies, and Emily started to feel like her old self again. One evening, while her aunt was out grocery shopping, Emily sat alone in the living room reading a book. The house was quiet, and the only light came from a small lamp beside her. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from an unknown number. "Nice place you have here." Her blood turned to ice. How could the shadowy figure have found her here? She bolted up, locking all the doors and windows, and called her aunt in a panic. "Aunt May, I got another message," she said, her voice trembling. "He knows where I am." "Stay calm, Emily. I'm on my way home. Call the police." Emily dialed 911, her hands shaking. The operator assured her that officers were on their way. As she waited, she kept glancing at the windows, expecting to see the shadowy figure at any moment. Minutes felt like hours, but finally her aunt arrived, followed shortly by the police. They searched the house and the surrounding area, but found no sign of the intruder. "We'll keep an eye on the house," one of the officers said, "but it might be best if you stayed somewhere else for a while." Emily and her aunt decided to spend the night at a nearby hotel. Emily barely slept, her mind racing with fear and uncertainty. How could this person keep finding her? And what did they want? The next morning, they returned to the house to find it undisturbed. Emily's parents called to say they had hired a private investigator to look into the situation. The investigator, a man named Jack, had years of experience dealing with stalkers and other dangerous individuals. Jack met with Emily and her family, listening carefully to their story. He reviewed the security footage and the text messages, nodding thoughtfully. "This isn't just a prank," he said. "This person is targeting Emily specifically. We'll need to dig deeper to find out who." He reviewed the security footage and the text messages, nodding thoughtfully. "This isn't just a prank," he said. "This person is targeting Emily specifically. We'll need to dig deeper to find out who." Tom's life had returned to a semblance of normalcy after the terrifying incident in the basement. Though his parents dismissed it as an overactive imagination, Tom knew what he had heard and felt that night. He avoided the basement whenever possible, and if he had to go down there, He made sure it was during the day and with all the lights on. But the whispering never really left his mind. It lingered like a dark cloud, always at the back of his thoughts, waiting to resurface. He found himself becoming increasingly anxious, jumping at small noises and dreading being left alone at night. His parents noticed his behavior but attributed it to the natural growing pains of adolescence. One evening, while his parents were out for a late dinner with friends, Tom was once again left alone. He tried to distract himself with video games, but the power flickered ominously several times, reminding him of that stormy night. He took a deep breath and told himself that it was just the wind. After all, it was a particularly blustery autumn evening. Suddenly, the house was plunged into darkness. Tom's heart skipped a beat as his surroundings were enveloped in a heavy silence. He grabbed his flashlight, the same one from that dreadful night, and checked his phone. No messages from his parents, but there was a text from his best friend, Jason. "Hey, you okay over there? My power's out too." Tom quickly replied, "Yeah, power's out here too. Kinda freaky being alone." "Wanna come over? My parents are here," Jason offered. Tom's fingers hovered over the screen. The idea of leaving the house was tempting, but something held him back. "I think I'll stay here, just in case my parents come back soon." "All right, man. Stay safe." Tom set his phone down and tried to calm his racing heart. He decided to go to the kitchen to find some candles, hoping their warm glow would make him feel safer. As he reached the bottom of the stairs, his flashlight flickered. He smacked it a couple of times and the light steadied. In the kitchen, he found the candles and lit a few, placing them around the room. The gentle flickering light cast eerie shadows on the walls, but it was better than complete darkness. He was about to head back to the living room when he heard it again. "Tom, come closer." The whisper was unmistakable. It sent chills down his spine, freezing him in place. He tried to convince himself that it was just his imagination, but the whispering grew louder, more insistent. "Tom, over here." He turned towards the basement door, the source of the sound. His legs felt like lead, but he forced himself to move, to confront whatever was calling him. He had to know the truth, no matter how terrifying it might be. As he opened the basement door, the whispering stopped. He shone his flashlight down the stairs, illuminating the darkness. Taking a deep breath, he descended slowly, each creak of the wooden steps echoing through the house. When he reached the bottom, he stood still, listening intently. The basement was cold, and the air felt thick with an oppressive presence. He walked towards the fuse box, hoping to restore the power and dispel his growing fear. "Tom." The whisper came from the far corner of the basement, where the shadows were deepest. He turned his flashlight in that direction, but it revealed nothing unusual. Summoning all his courage, he approached the corner. As he got closer, he noticed something strange. The concrete wall seemed to shimmer as if it were made of water instead of solid material. His heart pounded in his chest, but he couldn't stop himself from reaching out to touch it. The moment his fingers brushed the wall, he was pulled forward, as if by an invisible force. He stumbled through the wall and found himself in a small hidden room. The air was even colder here, and the whispering was deafening. In the center of the room was an old, dusty mirror. Its surface was covered in grime, but Tom could see a faint, ghostly image in it. He stepped closer, his breath visible in the frigid air. The image in the mirror became clearer, and he saw a young boy, about his age, staring back at him. "Tom, help me," the boy in the mirror whispered. Tom's eyes widened in horror. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling. "My name is Samuel. I was trapped here a long time ago." "Trapped? How?" Tom's fear was now mixed with curiosity. "There was a terrible accident. The mirror is a doorway, but it can only be opened from this side. I've been calling for help, but no one could hear me until now." Tom felt a surge of sympathy for Samuel. "How can I help you?" "You need to break the mirror," Samuel said. "It's the only way to set me free." Tom hesitated. Something about this didn't feel right. "What will happen if I break it?" "Please, Tom," Samuel pleaded. "I just want to go home." Tom looked around the room for something to break the mirror with. He found an old rusty hammer in the corner. Taking a deep breath, he raised it and struck the mirror with all his might. The mirror shattered, and a deafening roar filled the room. Tom was thrown backwards, hitting the wall hard. Dazed, he watched as a dark mist poured out of the broken mirror, swirling around the room. "Thank you, Tom," Samuel's voice echoed, but it had changed. It was deeper, more sinister. Tom's heart sank. He had been tricked. The mist began to take shape, forming into a grotesque, shadowy figure. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and it advanced towards him. "You have freed me," the figure said, its voice a chilling blend of Samuel's and something darker. "And now, I am free to roam the world once more." Tom scrambled to his feet and ran for the basement stairs. He could feel the entity's cold breath on his neck as he sprinted up, desperate to escape. He burst through the basement door and slammed it shut, locking it with trembling hands. He grabbed his phone and called Jason. "Jason, I need your help. Now." Jason didn't ask questions. "I'm on my way." Tom waited by the front door, his eyes never leaving the basement door. He could hear faint whispering behind it, but he didn't dare get closer. When Jason arrived, he looked around, confused. "What's going on, Tom?" "I did something bad," Tom said, his voice shaking. "I let something out of the basement. We need to get out of here." Jason didn't hesitate. "Let's go to my place. We'll figure this out there." They ran out of the house and didn't stop until they reached Jason's. Once inside, Tom told Jason everything. Jason listened in stunned silence, but he didn't doubt Tom's story. They decided to call Tom's parents and the police, knowing they couldn't handle this alone. When the authorities arrived at Tom's house, they found nothing unusual. The basement was just as Tom had left it, but the hidden room and the shattered mirror were gone. The entity had disappeared, leaving no trace behind. Tom's parents took his story more seriously this time. They decided to move out of the house, not wanting to risk any more encounters with the supernatural. They never found out what the entity was or where it had gone, but Tom knew it was still out there, lurking in the shadows. Years passed, and Tom grew up. He moved to a different town for college, trying to put the past behind him. But now and then, he would hear a faint whisper in the dark, a reminder that the entity was still watching, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Tom never forgot the lesson he had learned. Some mysteries are better left unsolved, and some doors should never be opened. The whispers in the basement had been a warning, and though he had escaped with his life, he knew that not everyone would be so lucky. And so, Tom lived with the knowledge that true horror doesn't come from the things we can see, but from the unseen forces that lurk in the shadows, waiting to pull us into their dark, terrifying worlds.